So, welcome back, everyone. So it's interesting. We were talking about Rosh Hashana, and I think I don't know. I think it's looking different for a lot of us this year. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Some things are looking different, but some things are still the same. What do I mean by that? Is that the days before Rosh Hashana are a very powerful time, right? There's a story that's given, a parable that's given, that a person, that there was a jail, a prison, and there's all these prisoners that are stuck in jail, and they come up with a plan, and they break out of prison. Now there's one person who decides, one of the prisoners that decides, you know what, I'm not going to break the rules, so to speak, and I'm going to stay here. So if you were the prison warden, you come in and you notice that all your prisoners have broken out except for this one guy. What would your reaction be?
Why didn't you try and go with them?
Why didn't you go? Yeah, why didn't you go? Would you think he's, wow, you're amazing? Would you think?
I would say, wow, what a good guy.
Okay.
That hasn't broken out of jail.
That hasn't broken out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I wouldn't think that because he's in jail.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
I would think he's an amazing guy.
He's doing what he should be doing by staying in jail.
Exactly.
It was more the others why they gone.
You would think, why have the others gone?
Yeah.
Would anyone think that?
I feel
No,
like
because
where
most
it
criminals
was-
are second-time offenders, but some of them genuinely repent.
Right, but I'm also like, if you're in jail and you have the opportunity to get out.
That's how long's left on his sentence.
Okay, great question. So let's assume, not that it's a real story, but let's assume it's a life sentence. So he's in there forever.
Yeah, if it was life, he's got nothing to
anyway.
do.
Sorry, hold on just a
Or he's got, you
second.
know, that illness where you're like, jail is better than like going out. So you're just like afraid to go out.
Oh, so you're actually thinking that this guy's got something wrong with him. Okay, so we have Sharon on the one hand who thinks that fantastic. You're you're a model to our society. Well,
But not quite.
perhaps
To the
not.
prisoners. Model to the prisoners.
Model to the prisoners. And you have Avital on the other hand who thinks something's seriously wrong with this guy.
No,
No, it's a life sentence. Life
Oh, sorry,
sentence.
last time.
He's
No,
got-
he's got nowhere to go. Especially if someone else broke the bars for you.
Right, like everyone else gets out, right? So hi Jackie. So the way the parable goes is that the prison warden comes in and he sees this guy who stayed and he beats him, right? Okay, let's imagine there's a prison where they did capital punishment, but he beats him up. Why? Because the fact that this guy is staying in prison, right, shows that it's not so bad. He's kind of missed the point, right? The whole point of prison is supposed to teach someone that you did something terrible and you got to change and you got to get out. If he's staying in prison, then there's something wrong. There's something weird. There's something wrong. So he goes and he beats him up to kind of drill him in the message that prison is supposed to be a place where you want to get out, right? Like if you stay in prison, when you have an opportunity, even an illegal opportunity to get out, then it shows that you've missed the point of what prison is. Where am I going with this? Where's the story is brought down in Talmud? Where's it telling us? It's telling us that Elul is kind of that opportunity, right? We, each of us, and if you think about it in your head for a minute, all of us have things that are kind of like a jail, right? That hold us back from achieving what we need to do, from becoming the person that we need to be, right? Whatever those things are, whether it's a character trait, whether it's a mindset, whatever it is, that we all have things that are holding us back, that kind of like are imprisoning us. And Elul is that opportunity where we can break free, right? Where we have the opportunity to say, you know what? This is the thing that's holding me back. Now's my chance to get out of it. If we don't take that opportunity, we're told, it's kind of like being that prisoner that has the opportunity to break free, but decides not to. Everyone following so far? So I can't think for the moment off the top of my head of an example of something that can hold a person back. But can anyone else? Does anyone else want to share anything? It doesn't have to be personal, but share an example of something that can hold someone back, like when we talk about the terms of like being imprisoned. And anyone that's on Zoom, you're more than welcome to weigh in as well at any point. Anyone wants to share an example of something that
Guilt, maybe.
Guilt, yes, guilt. If it's an unproductive guilt, that's a great example, Jackie. Thank you. Any other ideas, thoughts? Sometimes we have like the one thing that I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna start doing the other, right? Sorry.
Lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence.
Very anxious, frightened.
Yes.
Facing the demons.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes, like we say, I'm going to be on time places, right? I'm going to start to pray once a day, or I'm going to light Shabbat candles at time. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, right? And every so often we think I should do it, right? And we just think, like if I would do that, if I would bring this value into my family, I would be so much closer to having that type of home that I want to do. For example, that's just one example, right? So one of the ways that we have to look at the time right now is as though we are that prisoner with that opportunity to break free. And we don't want to be, in the words of Tammy and Avital, like weird. Like, why are you not grabbing that opportunity? So hold that thought in mind. Let me ask you a question, and you can be honest and open here. When I talk about Rosh Hashana, judgment, what sort of word comes to mind? What sort of feeling, what sort of word when I talk about judgment?
Repenting.
Okay.
Asking for forgiveness.
Repentance, asking for forgiveness, New Year. Anything else? Feelings?
Fresh beginning.
Fear, yes, definitely. Sorry? A new start. So it's interesting because we have I think two sort of feelings here, right? We have the feeling of like fear and like who wants to be judged, right? Like generally if you use that word judgment, it's a bit of a negative word, right? Like don't judge me, right? But then there's also that feeling which a couple of you have said about it, which is like a newness, right? An opportunity, a freshness. I want to show you something that I think might show you a new perspective on the judgment that happens on Rosh Hashana. So I'm going to give you, I know it's late at night, but I'm going to give you an interesting idea, and let's see if anyone can come up with a question on it. So we're told, and this is an interesting phrase that we're told. We're told about God. It is a kindness that you do, God, for you will pay a person according to his deeds. Sounds good so far? Yes? Yes?
Like rewarded
Yeah.
for good deeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds good so far? Okay, now let me switch it and tell me how it sounds now, right? I'm so kind. You know what I did? I had a painter who came to my house and I paid him for their work. Why are you laughing at me?
Paid him for a job. It's not
Yeah,
making it so like sound like it's
You would do that anyway.
It's not a kindness, it's your moral duty, right? It's not like, why is it saying? So why is it saying that God,
a favor.
right, like it's not kind, like if you pay your worker, you pay, like my cleaning lady came to and I paid her, like I'm not being kind, I'm being like decent, right?
If you have done something to be kind, you shouldn't just be so ghosting like that.
Right. Okay. That's absolutely a fair enough point, Beth, as well. But definitely, like, why are you saying that you're kind when you're like, what's kind about God giving us the reward that we do? Any ideas?
Well, we're
Any
not
thoughts?
asking for it. It's not like we're doing this thing like I've done this now, what you're giving me in return. It's like it's not an expected thing.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but the level that you're talking about of just doing mitzvahs.
No, I think
for
you do. If I struggle to
keep Shabbat or keep kosher. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah, any
And I'm really like making an effort. I'm struggling, and then Hashem gives me a massive knock with someone, I don't know, passing away or money troubles or whatever it is. Then I'll turn around and be like, well, what's the point? Why am I trying so hard if you're not like, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think
Obviously, there are going to be times where you go through difficult times. I'm not saying every time. I'm just saying if you're constantly being.
and I can share with you that I had a little bit of that myself today, like when they brought out this rule of like the 6 rules, and like Shabbat, sharing Shabbat with other families is such a huge part of what we do, and it suddenly hit me that like, I don't know when the next time we can have Shabbat guests are, like, you know, even if we give away like 4 of our kids, we still can't have the guests, right? We give away
all of them, you still can't have people in your house.
Right, so I kept thinking maybe the match restrictions will be lifted, but now they bring this in about no 6. Like, I don't know when it is, and I was like, kind of like, you know, like, God, what's going on here, right? Like, so I think it is a I don't think it's like I think it's a very natural feeling, and a lot of one of the 13 principles of faith, in fact, is that every single thing that we do is rewarded and punished, right? Like that there's accountability for everything that we do. So I don't think it's a crazy thing to think like, you know, oh my gosh, like, wow, I may get a reward. Like it's very much what we're taught in Judaism. So why does it say that's a kindness? So there's 2 reasons why. The first is that we have to understand, and I think this is going to give us a fresh perspective on what Rosh Hashana is, that God has 2 ways of relating to us. There is the attribute of strict justice, whereas, sorry, I'm just going to let someone else in. Hi, Joe. So, I feel like I'm part of the secret club that no one over here. I don't know what there's a better way to do it, but it is what it is, right? So there's 2 ways of God relating to us. Number 1 is the attribute of strict justice, right? You do X, Y, Z, you get X, Y, Z. Sounds good? Who's happy with that sort of level of?
Yeah, I think as you get older, you don't need a reward for every single thing you do. I don't think everyone's like, oh, I'm going to do that and get a reward. I think you want to do it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to keep that for the second reason, because you answered something good there as well. But who's happy going into Rosh Hashanah with that sort of level of justice? That I don't know. I'm not really comfortable.
Everyone's different, and everyone's expectations are different. Everyone manages things differently. So I don't think it should be the same for everyone.
Absolutely, it's not the same for everyone, but it's strict justice according to what you are, right? Like, so if you mess up, that's strict justice. If you do good, that's strict justice according to your level and according to your circumstances and everything else. Yeah. But I still wouldn't be comfortable with that, because there's a lot of things that I mess up in a day, and if you count that up over a year, when it comes into Rosh Hashanah, that's a bit of a scary. Yeah, I don't know, you know. So then what happens is that God has so for most people, right? That sort of level, we cannot stand up to that strict level of justice, right? Because we, thank God, we have whatever we do have a lot of blessings in our life. We have our lives, we have health, we have, you know, so many different things that we just take for granted every single day. And there are lots of things that we do right, and there are some things that we do wrong. I mean, I'm talking for myself here anyway. I know none of you this will apply to, right? But so then what God does is God has a second way of relating to us, and that is the attribute of mercy, whereby God gives us more than what we deserve, right? So and this is the way that God relates to us, and that's why it's saying it's a kindness, right? It's a kindness that you pay a person for his deeds, because when you look at the person's deeds, you don't just give them X, right? It's like, you know, Makina came and she worked for 2 hours and I owed her £20, and I say, you know what, I'm going to give you £40, right? Then you'd say, yeah, that is kind, right? Which goes into, then I'm hopefully not going to brag all about it, but that, do you hear that? That's a kindness already. If I'm giving more, but there's a second level of kindness which God does, and I'll tell you a story before I go into it. So we lived in in Calgary in Western Canada for 4 years, which is very near to a city called Edmonton. And we worked with high school students, and part of what we used to do was Shabbatons with hundreds of kids. Can you imagine that? Everyone like
same bubble.
in the breathing the same thing, like sharing food, right? Like different world, different reality, right? Now in Edmonton in Canada, there is a massive shopping mall which has like an indoor theme park and an indoor water park. It's like insane. Right, an ice skating rink. Like it's literally insane. You could literally. Have you been there ever?
No, I'm saying that's where we should go.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. There's like a hotel. There's a hotel on premises. You could easily spend like days there.
Yeah. Do you have to quarantine when we come back?
From Canada, I don't think so. I think
Can we get in
so.
there?
You may not want to come back though.
Yeah.
So, but
It's all right. Don't go with your husband.
yes. So what's fascinating about it is that the owner of the mall happens to be a religious Jew, and he used to fund a lot of Jewish organizations within Edmonton. Then we moved to Vancouver, and we found out that he also funded the Jewish high school in Vancouver. So he was once asked the question, okay, you live in Edmonton, we get that you give money to the community, to the Jewish community of Edmonton, but why do you give money to Vancouver? And his answer was fascinating. He said, you think I give money, he said, I happen to have a business interest in Vancouver, like he owned one of the banks. We're talking about like multi-billionaires, like, you know, serious money. And he says, I happen to own one of the banks. He says, so you think that because I make money in Vancouver, I give money to the institution? She says, no, because I have discovered that wherever I fund the Jewish organizations within that city, my businesses flourish, right? Like we think, okay, you have money, so you give charity. What he discovered is that when you give charity, your business flourishes. And we actually have a source for this in the Torah when it says that they carried the ark. The word that the Torah says is the ark carried them. Because we live in a physical world, and we think that when we do something spiritual, it's a good thing. But the reality is that when we do spiritual things, it creates the physical, it changes the physical world that we live in. I'll tell you a fascinating story that happened to us, talking about now 11 or 12 years ago. So we were living in Germany at the time, and I had my
Happy country, yeah.
we lived in England, Israel, Germany, Canada, England. So four, just four. We're just getting started.
Oh, you're not going anywhere else.
Oh no, we're here now, and unless there's right, exactly. We're start. Unless there's other countries where you can have like more than 6 people. Anyway, so I had my daughter while we were living in Germany. So at the time I had been working for an English company. So I applied for maternity allowance through England, but I wasn't sure if I was eligible to do it because I wasn't living in England. So I applied and I never heard back, and I assumed, okay, fine, I'm not eligible. Fast forward about a year and a half later, we're living in Canada, and we're sending my oldest son to school. And we're looking at tuition, and in Canada, it's not like England. Tuition is through the roof, and we kind of like stretch ourselves as much as we can to give tuition to this school. And the most crazy thing happens. We get a letter in the post from the English maternity allowance to our house in Calgary. I have no idea how they found us, and they said to us, your application for maternity allowance got lost in our system, so we're paying you now. And it was almost $1 for like pound for dollar, like the exact amount as what we were paying for tuition. It was like the most insane story ever, right? So let's sum up where we're up to, right? So we're talking about Elul being an incredible opportunity to break through, right? To reach out and become where we need to be. We're also talking about Rosh Hashana being a day of obviously of judgment and accountability, but a judgment and accountability coming from a place of kindness, where God wants to give us, right? Where God wants to give us more than we earn and to give us that opportunity to really break through. So now I'm going to throw the question open to you. Let's say I want to do something. Let's say I want to achieve something. How do we get about achieving it? And in order to ask the question, I think it's a very good year to ask the question, because let's imagine we're heading into 2019, we're this time last year, and I would turn around to each of you around the table, and for all of us, our situations were different, and I would say, this is what's going to happen this year. What would you have said to me?
Yeah.
and I would have said,
What film?
what crazy film did you watch? And what would your reaction have been? Like, would you have said, you know what, I'm up for that sort of challenge?
No.
Absolutely not.
No way.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Anyone up for the challenge of lockdown, COVID? Anyone? Anyone on
Maybe the
Zoom?
first 3 months, now I'm over.
Three months? Oh my god. No.
That's amazing. But you know what? It did go on for.
I've had enough of it all.
Anyone on Zoom would be up for the challenge? We have a lot of
No.
a lot of no's going on, right? So let me ask you the second question. How did we get through it, right? And whatever your personal challenges were over lockdown, how did we get through it?
But what choice did
No
you
choice,
have?
yeah, exactly,
You
no
didn't have a
choice.
choice. You just had to deal with it. Simple as that.
We adapt. No other choice.
No choice.
We're moms. We have to.
Try and be positive as well. When, see
With lots of baking, lots of
family
eating,
time
water
and
fights.
Lots.
I hope we had very nice weather.
Yeah.
It certainly
Yeah.
did. I mean, that seems like a long time.
Having low expectations.
Low expectations, but you know what? Sometimes even the low expectations were too high, right?
But even
Yeah.
out of that bad time came good.
Generally.
We all got to know our neighbours. We all got introduced to Zoom. And we've got a new way of life, which is some aspects it's good.
Absolutely, we did. I mean, it's interesting what you're saying, Frank, because I read, like I briefly flipped through something that was on Facebook about how, like, we shouldn't look at the kids that are going back into school as behind because they've had a whole different experience, right? Which absolutely there was, but I still think that had we been offered that opportunity last year and said, this is what you're going to get out of it, but this is what you're going to have to give up to get to it, we would still have said no, right? And yet here we are at the end, in the middle, whatever you want to call it.
I do think we're the end.
It's made me appreciate everything so much more. I used to always moan and complain about schlepping out every night, taking the kids to football and picking them up and parties, and then, then it all starts.
Taking them to a party.
It really does make us
I'm glad
appreciate.
to have the kids back at school, but it's also nice to have them at home. Well, the first 3 months anyway. After that, no.
How old are they? I mean,
Might be a very different view.
It's
Yeah.
different on the age, and it's different on the kids
12
as
and
well.
14.
self-sufficient
yes,
children.
exactly.
No, the boy is.
Yeah, everyone's got a different situation.
Everyone has a
haven't
different
they?
situation, and I think everyone had that things. But I think also, like, we look back at it, and yes, we had no choice, right? But there were things that, and I think we can all say that I'm sure every single person in the room can look back and be proud of themselves for something that they got through. Even if it's just the fact that, you got through it, right? And you're all still sane, hopefully.
We're not in the priory.
Exactly,
We all help
right?
each other as well, though.
Right? Like, you could be proud of that, right? So how were we able to get through a difficult situation and get through it? Like, does anyone here in the room say, I don't know. I actually do not know how we managed to get through that.
We just didn't have a choice.
No,
So
I think my husband really helped.
My mum went to London after. Couldn't cope then. Genuinely.
I think
That's
we all
the
help
change.
each other.
Otherwise I wouldn't have
Cope with the
coped.
situation
Yeah, I'm saying
sometimes.
that's how I cope.
Right.
I think if I hadn't have had my husband around helping,
Yeah.
I would have really struggled.
But if you didn't have him around, you
would have managed it.
you would have
Yeah.
managed because that was the situation that was thrown at you.
Because you had
You
to.
manage
what you did.
everything, don't you? You always manage, and you look back and you wonder how on earth.
No, I know
Oh,
there are
that's
people
the
that
question
do.
that
Some
I
people
wanted
have
to-
crazy mental
Everything
breakdowns.
you do, and then you think
I don't think
you
everyone did
somehow
manage.
you have to manage and you have to
No,
pull
not
through
everyone
bad
did.
There are
times.
people that didn't.
But then you look back and you think I couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
But then you would have to do it again if you had to do it.
I
think if you had to do that another 6 months, I think there'll be. I'm not talking about just that. I'm talking about all bad things that you have to do, and you have to. Afterwards, you look back and you think, how on earth did I do it? And I wouldn't be able to do it again. But if you have to, then you
You
will.
have to, yes.
So,
But we all helped each other. Everybody helped each other, I think.
We're very lucky in this community. I don't think other communities would have had that. There was a lot of cases of people committing suicide and killing each other and whatever.
It's just not safe.
No,
Well, at the start there was quite a few news
It
articles.
doesn't do
I
mental
saw,
health any
but-
good, and it doesn't do if you're in an abusive marriage or
No,
things like
exactly.
that.
I think the
then-
Jewish community, we are very lucky. We have very good support bodies.
Yes,
It wasn't good for anyone's mental
I
health,
actually
really.
think that's quite a good thing. 'Cause if those people weren't getting on, then maybe they
No,
need that
because
reality
they could
check.
have literally-
Although I think, I don't know, because I think a lot, whatever, we'll discuss that.
Some of them are.
But yeah, no. Anyway, but I think the question that Sharon brings up, that feeling of, I actually don't know how I got through that. Is that something that we can all identify with a little bit, whether it's about this or about something else in our life?
Yeah, completely.
Right? Like you go through something, or you do something, and I'll give you another example, right? I know of someone who decided the family lives in within Greater Manchester area, and they decided to pick up and move to an area which had more of a Jewish community, so their family could have more of a Shabbat life, right? And what they had to give up for it was,
Manchester.
sorry?
They moved from Manchester.
From one, I don't want to give too many details in case the person doesn't want to say, but from one area within Manchester to
okay.
another area within Manchester. Now, what the person had to give up for that was that they had to sell the house, and the money that they had for the new house would be a smaller house. Right now, if you think about that, it doesn't make sense. How on earth does someone have the strength of character to say, you know what, I'm going to give up space in my house, because we all want a nice house and a big house, and we're not talking about someone who has a huge house, space in my house in order to give my kids the value of Shabbat. So here's what happens, and I think this is super, super powerful to know, is that in this world, we just have to commit, right? And you all said it, right? You said the reason we got through lockdown is because we had no choice. What does that mean? We had 100% commitment, right? It's why we love our kids. The reason why we love our kids is not because they're better than anyone else's kids. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's because we have 100% commitment to them, right? Liking our kids is a whole different story. That's for a whole nother discussion, right? But we love them to the end, not because they're better or whatever, because we're 100% committed to them. There's no divorcing kids, right? There just isn't, right? You're stuck with them. Even when they say 6, you're still in your household, right? So when we have 100% commitment, we can do crazy things. Why? Because God carries us. Just like that man said, I give charity because then my business flourishes. Right? And the ark, not that the people carried the ark when they were in the temple, but the ark actually carried them, right? When we commit to doing the right thing, I think then we're able to do crazy things. And I think sometimes I get asked, the best time I get asked this question is when I'm like out with like 4 or 5 kids and someone says to me, wow, you have a lot of kids. And I'm like, yeah, these are half of them. And they're like, are you crazy? Like, how do you manage, right? And I think the real answer is, right? Yeah, like, you have your hands full. Like, oh, you should see the rest of them.
It's like that. You know, I can't remember it in the bus when they're like going on the bus and they're like asking, are you working? Is this your job? Are you doing it like a crash or something? And they're like, oh no, it's just my family.
Yes. Sorry, Jackie. Oh, did she? Yeah, she's coming in. Hi, sorry about that you got locked out. Right, so what's the real answer? The real answer is because when we commit to the right thing, God carries us through. We can get crazy places because of it. Okay. Now, in fact, we're told that. So I'm going to ask one. What time is it? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you one last question. Why does God specifically judge us on Rosh Hashana? God judges on any day of the year. Why specifically on Rosh Hashana?
Judges you throughout the year, not just Rosh Hashana.
So
give us an opportunity, maybe.
But why specifically on Rosh Hashana? We have one day of judgment a year.
New Year, new start.
I thought it was
But-
Yom Kippur anyway.
Yom Kippur is the day of forgiveness.
Um,
So judgment is first, and then Yom Kippur, which
Yeah.
brings up the question: why don't we get forgiven for judgment? But that's a
you've been
whole
judged
nother.
for the previous year. then
Yeah,
it starts
It's kind of
the
the
new
start
year.
of the beginning of the end.
But the start of the new year could have been, I don't know, the 15th of Teves, for example. Or
That's
the
not Rosh Hashana.
and that's the answer. so Kabbalistic, we're told in Kabbalistically that every single day of every day has a certain energy, right? And that energy of the day comes back every single year. So what's the energy of Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah commemorates when God finished creating the world, right? Now, why did God create the world? Very easy question, right? Easy question for 9:15 at night. So I'll give you the 15-second brief answer, which is a whole a whole topic all of itself. God created the world in order to give us pleasure, right? Again, it's pleasure. Okay. Now, again, I'm saying I'm not. We don't have time to go into that. There's a whole different discussion. But so the energy, what's the energy of the day of Rosh Hashanah? It's one of God wanting to give us things. Now, what's fascinating is that when God created the world, God set it in motion that we have an impact on the world, right? Like, for example, when God created the world, he created Adam, he put him into this world, and we think of Adam arriving into this world, and a world filled with colors and flowers and plants. There was nothing. Nothing. He arrived into a world that there was nothing there. Why? Because he had to take the first step. He had to pray to God, and then it rained, and then things started to grow. So that's how the world works, right? That what happens is dependent on our actions, right? Our physical actions, right? Back to that guy in Vancouver. His physical action of giving charity is what causes his world to flourish. But there's one day a year when it's not like that. And that's the day of Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because that's the energy of God giving to us, right? So God wanted to judge us on the day where everything starts, where it's not up to us, right? We don't have to make that massive step. All we have to do is number one, we have to realize the opportunity that we're in, right? We have to realize this is an opportunity where I can change what my next year is going to look like. How do we do that? By remembering that we have this incredible power, right? That when we realize what that thing is that I want to do for this year and commit to it 100%, think of the commitment as though, they're your kids, right? Like your tantruming toddler or teenager or any age in between, right? You're not tossing them out because you haven't got a choice, right? That sort of level of commitment, when we commit to that thing, then please God will carry us through and will enable it to happen, so that when it comes next year, we can look back and we can say, wow, I don't know how I did that, but I did. And I'm just going to finish off with saying that people often ask, what sort of things should I take, right? What sort of things should I take on for myself? So the advice I've always been given, and which I pass on, is that take something that's easy for yourself, right? Take something that's just beyond your comfort zone, right? So that you can see success in it, and take a small thing that you can hopefully see success in that's just a little bit beyond our comfort zone. Any thoughts, questions, comments?